Most mortgage brokers overthink the idea of sounding salesy, especially when it comes to protection. But here is the real truth about this one. If you're putting your clients into significant debt and you're not talking about how to reduce that risk, you're not doing the job properly. So in today's episode, I'm going to break down how to introduce protection without feeling pushy, including when to bring it up in the client journey, what language to use so it feels completely natural, how to deal with the "I'll sort it later" because that's a nightmare, and how this one change can actually strengthen your client relationships. Let's dive into it. So question one, how can mortgage brokers talk about protection without sounding salesy? Yeah, well, that's pretty much the main question, isn't it? Honestly, I think people get too caught up on this idea of being worried about sounding salesy. I think that the way to do it, and I'm sure, well, this whole episode is going to be unpacking this anyway, so buckle up. But I think the way to do it is to not really worry about it. I think if you think, it's like, don't think of a pink elephant. All you can do is think of a pink elephant. It's exactly the same thing, I think, when it comes to sales. I think people are always they're worried about, what they're going to come across as and how they're going to sound. But actually, if you just think about it this way, is that it's your job is to put the client in debt. So you put them into significant debt, and with significant debt comes significant risk. And so it would be foolish, it would be negligent, or whatever the word is, it would be stupid, is what the word is, to put them in significant debt and significant risk and not try and at least have a discussion about how to eliminate or at least reduce the risk wherever possible. So that's kind of when they say, how do you talk about insurance without being salesy? First of all, in your mind, I think you can frame it either one of two ways. You can either say, look, I'm a salesperson, and that's what I do. And by the way, I'm a big advocate of sales. I don't have a problem with salespeople. I think people have this thing about, I'm an advisor. No, you're a salesperson. It's fine. So either you have to frame it as, I am salesy and I'm all in, or you have to frame it as, I am an advisor and I am going to make sure that my clients are fully protected. But you can't be both. I think that as in, like, you can't be saying, I don't like being salesy, but then you're not talking about it. Because if you're not talking about it, you're just rubbish at your job. Like, that's genuinely how I feel when it comes to it. And obviously, people who come and work with me, we work on this. We work on this. Like, I'm not saying I'm saying that you're nowhere near as good as you could be. You're not rubbish at the whole job. Don't get offended. I've got to be careful because some people get snowflakey about it. But the reality is, I just think that people are over worried about this idea of sounding salesy. I think if you sound salesy, if you think you're going to sound salesy, you probably will be. Either lean into that. And you see, like, there's many people in our industry, I won't name any names, who are absolutely smashing it and are incredibly salesy. Now, interestingly, I'm not that salesy. I'm way more the advisory kind of route. I don't think either one is better or worse. I just think that there's different people, or to say different strokes to different folks. I think everybody likes different things. There's nothing wrong at all. So I think that it's about, I think a lot of the time that question, it's a funny question because it comes up a lot, and that's why it's the first question here. But I think if we address it straight away, let's get an idea of how this episode is going to go, is I think that it's really a non-issue. It just is what it is. Just kind of get over it. It's more in our mind than anybody else's. So number two is, when is the best time to introduce protection in the client journey? Oh my gosh, as soon as you possibly can. I mean, like, ideally, okay, so interestingly, when is the best time to introduce it? I actually do have a really specific thing. So I know exactly when. You should introduce it at the discovery call. I was about to give a broad answer there. No, I'll tell you. Introduce it at the discovery call. That's when you should introduce it. Why I say that? It's not before and not after, but then. So what I see people make, let's take two mistakes. First mistake I see people make is, and not everyone, but we all know this one. We all know someone who's done it. We may have been guilty for it. And that is that we bring it up. Right. Well, gosh, some people bring it up at office, mortgage offer stage. And they're like, hey, we need to talk about this now. And you're like, whoa, where'd that come from? It's a proper, we don't want that. But we also have people then who sometimes bring it up on, like, submission. So they're doing the mortgage, they've submitted the mortgage, everything's in. They're like, hey, just so we need to talk about this as well. And they weren't made aware of it. We all hear those kind of stories, and people talk about that a lot. But so you want to introduce it at discovery. But what I don't think people get is that we then can do a complete 180 and end up talking about it in video content, in our marketing. And interestingly, I don't think you should talk about it in your marketing that much. In fact, if at all, unless there is a story of where someone has claimed on it. But I'm still kind of not sure. Now, let me explain why. Is that people are coming to you for a mortgage. That's what they're coming to you for. Now, yeah, you're going to have all the people who listen to this will be going, who are the ones who are like, yeah, well, they're coming for me for a mortgage. They don't want insurance. No, I'm not giving you that. That's not what I'm saying. But when they come to you, they're coming to you for a mortgage. And so in the discovery call, especially when you work with me and the scripts we use, there is a specific point in the script. It's actually part 3 of the discovery call where we literally break down and go, look, no, not look, no. We go, look, this is a mortgage package, and in the package includes bang, 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 and we go through them, of which one of them is insurance. And so you're addressing to the client, hey, yeah, I know that you no, this is just mortgages. You're saying, look, this is, you want to come to me for a mortgage, this is what I do. And so then now they're being introduced to all these other things, buildings and contents, like legal stuff, all this stuff that is required from a mortgage advisor. But if you introduce it in the marketing, you run the risk of confusing people as to what it is you do. Because the general public, Mr. Joe Blogs and Jane Doe, is it John Doe, Jane Doe? They don't know who they don't know that those two things are connected. And so when you start saying, oh, protection, they're like, does he do mortgages? Does he do insurance? And again, protection is a funny one, because I will stand on my soapbox and talk about this till I'm blue in the face. Having someone who very much spends a lot of time looking at consumer behavior and how it works and how people interact. Calling it protection is in marketing. Now, you can call it protection, by the way, when you're talking to the client, but calling it protection in marketing is a really bad idea. You shouldn't really talk about it at all, but in bad idea, because people do personal protection. People do either get confused by it, or they do get, and then people always say, oh, no, they're going to think about contraception. Well, truthfully, there's an association to that. It's whether or not they think it, and they might go, no, he's not talking about that. But there's an association to it. So I think protection is just the word. We were so scared of talking about insurance, but it's insurance. Insurance isn't a bit like the sales thing. It's not a dirty word. Neither is insurance. Just talk about insurance. Clients understand what insurance is. It's very clear. When you say insurance, they know what it is. When you talk about protections, they don't. Now, don't get me wrong. We do talk about it in the discovery call, but again, I would say, you'll be careful. So straight away, like I said then, I think that the time to bring it up is in discovery call. The first time you speak to them, when you're introducing your service, you introduce it all as one whole package. Number 3, what language helps clients see protection as essential and not optional? Oh, okay, interesting one. So what language makes them see it as essential, not optional? Well, I talked about this already, and a lot of this stuff is going to overlap with deep dive content, isn't it? So it's this idea of the mortgage package makes us feel like it's like essential. So that's the first one. So this idea of it's part of the mortgage instead of, people when they split it, my advice comes in equal parts or different parts, or again, okay, not too bad, but when you split it, you make the client split it in their mind too, and then they decide, is it the same? I'm a big advocate of the language of bringing them all together and saying it's the mortgage package. That's one of my favorite things to do when it comes to language. The other thing about when it comes to what type of language is using words like eliminate risk, reduce risk, accept risk. That's really, really good. So you'll see me talk about risk a lot, and the word eliminate, reduce, and accept. They are tangible things that the client, when talking about it, they're going to easily associate those. It's very visual, very, very, very visual. They can see it. That's what it means. Whereas when we have bronze, silver, gold, and all this type of stuff, it's a bit confusing. So reduce risk. So eliminate risk, reduce risk, and accept risk. There are 3 things. And then I also love that one I've said already on this, which is, we get you into significant debt, and with significant debt comes significant risk, and my job is to eliminate that risk. That, again, it's a great line that you can say that makes people go, yeah, and it instantly kind of makes protection feel normal. No one can argue with that versus if you are doing it as a if you're doing it like as trying to sell it and all of that stuff, it goes a bit messy. So the language is important, but to be fair, I've given you most of the good ones there. If you just memorize those, you'll do pretty well. Number 4, how do you deal with clients who say, I'll sort insurance later? Good one. So how do you deal with the clients who say, I'll sort insurance later is a tough one, because if you've set up, most of the time you want to look at, there's a difference between what I'd say objections and obstacles. Okay. So objections is things that come to you there. So that's someone who's saying that's an objection, a great example of an objection. An obstacle, however, is something that we address earlier on in the journey, so that we are bringing it up and we're addressing it early in the journey, so that we're addressing it, not them. So how do you stop that from happening? A lot of the time is you make the objection into an obstacle before. So you bring it up. Again, discovery call is where you bring it up. All of this stuff should be baked into a discovery call. It should be scripted. It should be learned. It doesn't have to be mine. It should be, it can be your own. It doesn't matter. But it can be other practitioners out there. There's some great people in our industry who do different things to me, but still equally good. We all get to the similar destination. They, like, what you should be making sure you do is you should be making sure that that you would tackle the objection when it's an obstacle, not an objection. That's what I'd say. So the best thing is they shouldn't really be coming up to that point where they're asking that question. I'm going to go to what to do when they do ask that. But ideally, that's the point. And it's actually one of the biggest telltale signs I have when I work with clients. And normally about 9 months in, we've gone through the sales, we've done some marketing, we've done some sales, we've done some retention, we're looking at some marketing, and they'll ask me a question and say, oh, what happens when the client says this? And I'm like, you're not doing the process right, because I know we have to then, and that's a signal normally for me to go, look, we need to let's go over the process again, which is absolutely fine, by the way. We all do that. So first thing is, how do you get rid of it? Just it's like, what's the thing that the Matrix quote, which is, how do you telling me I can dodge bullets? And he's like, look, I'm telling you, when you're ready, you won't have to. And it's exactly the same thing with that. If you want to dodge objections, that's fine. But if you actually follow a really good discovery call structure and process, you won't have to dodge them. Now, let's address then, how do you, when someone says that, I'll talk about insurance later. The biggest thing with this is to address the elephant in the room with it. So, kind of, again, they're in an objection, but now you kind of want to turn it into an obstacle again. So the biggest thing with that is just asking, acknowledge it. I understand. I get what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. What is it specifically that is putting you off talking about it today? Straight away, ask them. What is it specifically that's putting you off today? And if they go, oh, well, it's just, there's a few things, time, or it's, it's just a lot going on at the moment. Okay, understand. There's nothing else. There's no other reason why you do it other than time. And why we're doing that is, what we're actually doing is most people have many objections. So what we're trying to do there is, and then the first one they tell you is not the real one. So what you're trying to do there is trying to nail down and condense to find the real objection. Because when you find the real objection, then you can unpick it, which oftentimes, by the way, is going to be, I genuinely do just need to think about it. And that's not great, but some people do just need to think about it. I'm a person who needs to think about stuff. Or it can be price or things like that. But a lot of the time you have to do it, and you have to like double down onto it. And the best way to do that is to just be very direct, be very fair, be very reasonable. I completely understand what you're saying. I have to think about things too. Or, I sometimes have to talk about things there. What is it that's stopping you from doing it today, though? Just curious what's stopping it from doing it today. And then let them speak. And then just keep asking. And if you've heard the thing, it's the 3 whys. So it's like, ask them why. So why do you feel like that? Or what is it that makes you think that way? Okay, cool. And what is it that makes you think that way? And then what does it make you think that? And I'm saying it 3 times for a reason. Because when you say it 3 times, you eventually get to the root cause. And most of the time, it's actually, I just haven't really made the decision yet. But ideally, I'd say with that one, you want to fix that process and turn it to an obstacle. And make it a non-negotiable in your process that you are doing protection and you will be working. And we have it. There's a line in the discovery call script that I'm trying to remember, but it's the bit where it's like, we address it, make it very like it's uncomfortable, and then we're like, look, this is an uncomfortable conversation, but we will be talking about this in detail if we work together. So you're effectively, if by them opting in to work together with you, they are opting in with an agreement, a verbal agreement to say, yes, I'm aware we're going to do this. So when you talk to them about it, they're not like, oh, well, where did that come from? It's like, you knew, we already spoke about this. So a lot of the time it's addressing it early. If you're enjoying this and you want to take your business a step further, I've got something free that will help. Okay. It's called the Mortgage Business Boost. It's a 30-day email series packed with daily tips, scripts, and strategies to help you attract more leads, close more protection, and simplify your business. It's completely free. It's purely educational, and you can grab it right now. The link is in the description. Let's get back into the episode. Number 5 is, can story-based advice make protection conversations easier? So I have a very different take on this one, which is I don't think they do. And this is a very unpopular opinion, but I don't think they do. So oftentimes you hear people sell stories and they'll say, hey, look, that I work with this client and this happened to them, and you're trying to make it real. And that's a big, big thing. There's a big one, like people do that, or like your own personal stories can work. So if it's your story, yeah, it can work better. But stories about other clients or other stories, and I don't, you know what, the road shows and the providers, I just don't They don't seem to grasp this. It doesn't seem to work. I don't think they do, not effectively. And the reason, let me explain why. So and I'll explain what I think the option should be. Again, really controversial here, but this is my opinion, is that when you tell somebody, it's known as cognitive dissonance, but it's not the part of it's cognitive dissonance. There's other things within it. But when you're telling somebody about a story, about something that happened to them, they're going to stick their head in the sand and go, that's not going to happen to me. Very few people think it's going to happen to them. Ever. They just don't. So when you're telling them about this awful story about a client, who this situation happened, you're thinking you're walking them along a buying journey to go, yeah, I get it. Very few people, they're just thinking, okay, come on, John, wrap up. Like, good for you. Like, it's not going to happen to us. That's nearly always what's happening. And I think the reason why these things work, and why they've been considered to work, is because, and yes, people do see themselves in stories. I absolutely get it, but not in negative things. So in the negative stuff, and that's what I said about cognitive dissonance. It's this idea of like, no, we don't want to talk about negative stuff. We don't want to. We've all got it. I've got my best friend has one of those like fear of death. Can't talk about death. I have no problem about death. He cannot talk about it. It makes him visibly uncomfortable, like physically everything. You can tell it. And so I don't talk about it with him. But that's the type of person that you get that and you talk to them and you tell a story about it, makes them uncomfortable. So why I say that is these story things are really kind of funny. Now, why do I think they have worked is that you might fluke out every now and then and tell a story about a client situation of which the person sat in front of you has had that happen to them. And so when that happens, then they're like, wow, okay, and it hits. Because they see themselves in that situation because they've been in it, or they've seen a loved one, or they've seen it adjacent to them in some way. So actually, what I think people should do is actually you want to move to that. You want to get the client. So we go, why are they doing that? Well, it's because they're seeing themselves in the situation. So what you should be doing, from my opinion, is on these calls you should be getting the client to see themselves in that situation, and that's a very different thing. So we do that by leveraging what we call loss aversion. So loss aversion is, we are way more likely, I can't remember the exact statistic, but we are way more likely to keep, to vigorously defend what we have already than to gain something new. And it's built into our brains because of evolution and stuff, that everything we know that our life right now exists exactly how it does because of the stuff we have and who we are or around us. But we know that we can exist without the new things coming in. So our brain says, look, you don't really need that new thing, but we know we can't lose this old thing. It's the reason, by the way, where you have things like gym memberships give you 30-day trials and stuff like that, because it once you've got the gym membership, it's very hard for you to get rid of it. Or you've got the 30-day trial of Netflix, it's very hard to get rid of it because now it's yours, it belongs to you. And that is actually the effect you can use instead of stories, is you put the client in their life. We do this, we call it a financial resilience check, but we put it in their life. And then what we do is build their life up, show them their life, and then tear their life down in front of them without you saying anything, because you're using facts. You're just showing their life. But what happens is when you do that, the client starts to see themselves in that situation, and their brains all going a million miles an hour, and then they see it. And that's how I teach it. It's very different to the vast majority of people in our industry. I don't know why. But it is. So yeah, I will never tell a client to tell a story about another client or something they know in the sale of protection. In marketing, 100%, but not in the sale of protection. So number 6 is, what systems help you integrate protection without adding more admin? So there's a few things. Great system, actually. If we talk about physical systems and then actual things, but the system that I am using a lot right now, and I reckon you should check it out. I'll make sure actually I link it in the description on the YouTube video, the YouTube channel here, and also on the podcast you're listening to. So this is the Mortgage Business Mastery YouTube channel, and then which is the podcast channel, and then we also have it on all podcast platforms. But software that I've been blown away by which is a system, which is Keychain. So Keychain is like an AI-based fact-finding client onboarding software, and it has what is great about it, and again, I'm not a salesperson for it, I'm not a spokesperson, but my clients are using it, and Jack Rogers, he's actually last week's episode. So you want to check it out. Last week's episode, we spoke about this and we had him on, so you should check it out. And we did a deep dive into what it does. But effectively, there's a bit in it where there's like 4 main things it does from my understanding of it with clients is like fact find, document analysis, and like upload and stuff like that. And then it also does the health questionnaire, the medical questionnaire, and the IDD kind of signing, docu-signing kind of bit. Now, the bit where it comes to protection with that is getting the health questionnaire as soon as possible. So effectively getting the health questionnaire after discovery call is how I would do it when I work with my clients through my MBM system, is getting the health questionnaire right then. Now, when you do that, what that does is it's reducing admin because you're not having to go back and forth. It's being based on it's on a very smart client onboarding portal, and you're getting it early. So the chance of the client buying in is significantly higher. And by the way, you should be getting medicals, in my opinion, well, obviously, right at the point of discovery call, because it's the same thing. The clients will do everything for you when they know that you have everything they want. So they'll give you all the docs. The ones that's gone later, that they won't. So I would say, what is a great software, a great like process to reduce admin? I mean, I'm not going to dive any deeper into anything else because I'll water it out. That's the one. So if you want to learn more about that, you want to check out our episode last week. I'll link it at the end of this one if you're watching us on YouTube. But you can also check out the link in the description. I've actually negotiated with Jack a 2-month free trial, so because it's normally a month. We've negotiated a 2-month free trial so that you guys can get a real idea of like how it fits into your process. Because I think it's nicer to have a nice longer running time. So go and check that one out. That's really, really good. Number 7 is, how can selling more protection actually improve your clients' relationships? I think it improves it on many different ways. I actually do think it improves it on the basis that you actually are deeper. You create a deeper relationship with them because you're talking about real things. When you go through these like discovery call, submission call kind of situation, put them through the financial resilience check, you're going to have a deeper connection with them because you've taken them into an uncomfortable situation and navigated it with them. So yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer. I also think it creates it bulletproofs your advice, because the way that you set it up, the way that we set it up, and the way you should set it up is, other advisors should be doing this. And if they're not doing it, you should really question their validity of how good they are as an advisor. And so because of that, what you then do is builds that real relationship with the client of like, yeah, you've got my back. And I think, I just think it's the right thing to do. Like, you build stronger relationships when you do the job right. And again, what I would say with this, which is the biggest bit, we do this within discovery. So many bits I'm saying we do this. This is not a sales pitch. I'm really always busy, but it's more like, that's the whole point, is to talk about it, is that within the process, it's really, really important that the client is aware that you should be having these conversations. Not that we're going to have them, but that they should have actually had them already. If they've ever had a mortgage before, you should have had this conversation. And so what's great about that is when you are bringing to their attention, and this is interesting because many people don't do this in general, is like, if you're doing a really good job, but the client doesn't know because you're not telling them, and then the client doesn't think you're doing a good job, that's really common. And how are they supposed to know if you've never told them? And I think this is the case within it. Is it's not just how I think it strengthens relationships, is when you're saying to them, you should have been told this. If you haven't, I'm really sorry that that's happened, but like from people before me, that's not going to happen again. Now, how do we answer that question? I get this one a lot, is how do you answer the question then when you are the one that hasn't, you've got a big client bank, they're coming back to you, you haven't sold them insurance for 5 to 10 years, and then you're now the one going, ooh. And honestly, again, radical candor. You go, hey, look, we say there's 3 reasons why I didn't have it, and one of them is, you never told about it. And you say, and that was me. I should have told you. I didn't tell you. I was a coward. I was worried about talking about it. I was worried about offending you. I was worried about having this awkward conversation. And to be completely honest with you, that's what it was. It was uncomfortable. It's not very nice to talk about these type of things. I didn't want to upset you. But the truth is, I know that's not a very good thing to do. You're not employing me. You're not paying me to keep you like, your feelings safe. You're paying me to make sure that I eliminate all financial, because again, we're paying me because you're getting a mortgage, which is significant debt, and with significant debt comes significant risk. And obviously it is my job to eliminate all that risk. Otherwise it would be silly to not do that. Wouldn't you agree? Yes, I'm glad, because I do too. There you go, move on. So it really does build much, much stronger relationships. I hope that gave you a few new ways to think about how you can introduce protection and how it can actually make you a better advisor, not a pushier one. If you're going to find it useful, you're going to love next week's episode, which is all about the tech that you can use as a mortgage advisor that's going to leverage you and build your business and hopefully make life easier for you. So see you in that one.